Hello, Julie Chance with Action Strategies by Design. And in this month's video, in our series for everything DiSC Catalyst facilitators and participants, we're going to be reviewing the Conversation Starters feature. Conversation Starters is under My Groups, and the easiest way to get there, you can see we're on the home page of Catalyst now. This is what you see when you log in. And the easiest way to get to My Groups is to just click on that Build a Group function, and it will take you to the My Groups area. And you can see I already have a group built here. If you didn't have a group, you could go up and do Create Group. Or if you had a group already, and let's say you had a group for your department, but you wanted to maybe you were part of a project team, an cross-departmental project team, and you wanted to create a group for that and look at conversation starters for that, you could create a new group there. For this video, we're just going to use the group that I've already got created called Julie's group. Very creative, I know. And conversation starters, you can get to that up here on the right in this navigation within groups. And conversation starters is really designed for leaders and their teams who have been through Catalyst to continue using DiSC in their day-to-day work to help integrate the concepts, and maybe to help maybe when there's a situation where maybe communications deteriorated a little bit, or maybe there's a new team member and you want everybody to get to know the team a little bit better. The other time that I think Conversation Starters is very useful, which I alluded to or mentioned already, is if you've got a project team or a new team is coming together and you want to kick as a way to kick the team off. Conversation Starters can be a great way to help ensure a smooth working relationship as you go through that process. So once you click on Conversation Starters, there's 3 options right now. I imagine that more topics will be added, especially if this is a used function. So if people like this function, if there's a lot of usage, I can see additional topic areas being added. Right now there's 3: get to know your team, make decisions together, and communicate clearly. For the purposes of this video, we're going to look at just one, and we're going to look at communicates clearly. So I'm going to click on that, and it tells a little bit of information here about what's going to be on the next few pages, and says to plan on spending 8 to 15 minutes on the 3 screens that are part of this scenario. If you have a really large group, it might take longer. If you really want to have an in-depth conversation, it might take longer than that as well. And so we're going to click on Get Started, and we've got one of the the group continua here, which is Communicate Clearly. And we can see that the 2 endpoints are tactful, which means take time to think about and consider how to phrase things, be mindful of protecting feelings, and sometimes people who are tactful may hold back sharing their true opinions. Whereas on the other end, somebody who speaks frankly, speaks up with their opinions, has a high tolerance for disagreement and tension. And I think that's something really important to realize between the 2 ends of the continuum, that the tolerance levels are very different for disagreements and tension. And what one person calls conflict, the other person might just call dialogue. So to keep that in mind. And then they feel stressed when their voice isn't heard. So it's stressful for them to not be heard. And we see with this particular team, we have a whole lot of people down towards that frank end, with 1 person in the middle and 1 person down on the tactful end. So you might discuss what the dynamics of that are. How does that impact team functioning? There's also 3 questions, discussion questions that are recommended. One is to talk about how accurate your placement is on the continuum, and to let each person talk about that. And then talk about times maybe when you should be more tactful or you should be more frank, but aren't. What makes it hard? And what would make it easier? What could teammates do to make it easier to move towards one end of the continuum or the other when that might be needed? And then think about a time when the team disagreed on a decision. How did tactfulness help? How did frankness help? And I would really encourage the team to talk about different times when maybe there was too much frankness or not enough, or too much tactfulness or not enough, and how that impacted everybody. I would also ask those two people, particularly the two people that are furthest from the frank end of the continuum, how does it feel to be part of this group? How does it feel for them when there's disagreements or dialogue and debate and a high level of tension that might feel very comfortable for those people that are frank? How does that feel to them, and how does that impact them in terms of being on the team? And then once you've had that discussion, you can go to next, and you've got another continuum. This continuum is being structured. It talks through what being structured is, what being unstructured is. You can see this team has a little bit more diversity in terms of structured and unstructured, but there's still 3 people up on that unstructured end and 2 down on that structured end. So conversations about how does that impact the team dynamics, and how does it feel when you're one of the people who's structured and you're working with the unstructured, and vice versa. And the 3 discussion questions again is: how accurate is your placement? Think about a recent group meeting. What would an outside observer think about the conversation? Would they consider it to be more structured or unstructured? And then maybe what are the benefits and maybe the consequences of whichever one that falls to? And then talk a little bit about, do you ever wish, and allow each person to talk about, do they wish the group would take a more structured or more unstructured approach? Why or why not? And what might the benefits or consequences of that be? So you can see by looking at these 2 continua that relate to how people make decisions and the types of information they need to make decisions, you can really have an in-depth conversation, very robust, and really learn a lot about how people prefer to work, how to adapt so you can work more effectively given the situation, and what might make people more comfortable and uncomfortable. And then you click the next one, it shows both continua, and it gives some ideas about how to improve team communication. So as a group, you can look through these, you can choose 2 or 3 that you want to work on, or come up with some of your own, document those choices, and then refer to them and come back to them during group meetings and during one-on-one conversations. So that's a quick overview of conversation starters. Once you finish that, you can go back and have another one, or you can save the other topic for another time.